Just a thought. Meantime, we have the talk of a second stimulus is also getting louder. Our next guest argues that the first stimulus package never worked. Joining us now, Republican Congressman Brian Bilbray of California. Congressman, thanks for being with us. And I read your piece about the fact that you didn't think the stimulus worked. You know what the critics will say is, well, it takes some time for a stimulus to actually turn the economy around. So how do you answer those critics, and how much time would you give a stimulus program to work?
Well, Tom, first of all, if you want the stimulus to work, then you front load the program to create the stimulus as quickly as possible. You don't backload it to where it doesn't really kick in for a couple of years. But frankly, what's been done is that it ended up being a grab bag, a goodie bag for everybody, and a lot of political payoffs. And this just reinforces the negative stereotype that Washington does what's good for Washington, not necessary for the public. And I think you're going to see that, this talk of a second stimulus is something that's being done very quietly. You've already seen that leadership in Congress is afraid to call anything a second stimulus, because then they have to admit that the first stimulus didn't do its job. So you're going to see, instead of a big package and wrapping it up as a second stimulus, I think you're going to see them package small little special projects and slip them through so that they don't have to claim their stimulus, except for quietly among the people that are going to vote on it, saying, look, you got to vote on this because we got to stimulate this economy because the other side, the other one didn't work.
I have to ask you, Congressman, I have a feeling that you're referencing what is happening in your district in Southern California, that is San Diego County, because of the border issues and money from Homeland Security and potentially stimulus going to those checkpoints. And there's been some accusations of corruption down there. Can you elaborate on that and why you were frustrated with what's happening in Southern California?
Well, I'm ranking member on procurement, on government oversight. So this whole issue of how our money is spent and where it goes is really a big concern, especially when you start talking about a justification not to use the regular checks and balances and the open bidding process that historically has been the safety valve. You've got some real problems there. And, along the border, we have a real challenge because we're not in isolation. You can't have as many bad guys running around on the other side of the border without their influence hitting us on our side in one way or the other. And we've seen that in corruption and in crimes along the San Diego-Tijuana border. It's one of those things that you not only should not be surprised of, you should expect it as being a threat and try to counter that, and we haven't really done it appropriately. So I think the biggest problem is the one biggest stimulus we've had is the millions and millions that went to painting signs to announce that projects were done under the stimulus package. That's been where the real economic benefit's been, and that's in the sign makers.
Congressman, you're kind of at the heart of many of the issues that the United States face today, the housing collapse, health care, immigration issue. I mean, what are your constituents clamoring for the most? If you had to prioritize things, what's like the number one thing that they want right now?
The number one thing they want is what they haven't seen from either the Democrats and Republicans in almost a decade, and that's fiscal responsibility. Hey, look, guys, the constituents are saying we're spending their money and saying trust us, and they don't trust us. They want us to explain, and we have a burden of proof to show the American people that every dollar, every trillion that we commit, that somehow we're doing it responsible. And right now they don't see that, especially when they see bills being passed when members of Congress not only don't read it, but don't have the possibility of reading something when you make those type of commitments. So I think our credibility, the degree of trust the American people have in us is the biggest challenge we have when I talk to constituents. And I think that's the biggest thing that we are ignoring right now. We try to say that all these Tea Parties are somehow an organized group. There's no political party, especially not the Republican Party, organizing the Tea Parties. This is something that started under the Bush administration. They didn't like the bank bailout, and now you've seen they don't like to see what this administration, the new majority, is doing. I think all of us got to sort of understand that we're all in this together as Americans, but if Congress wants to gain our credibility, we've got to be a lot more accountable for how we're spending the public's money, especially when we're spending their grandchildren's money like we are now.
Congressman Brian Bilbray from California, from Southern California. Thank you, sir, for speaking with Fox
Cheryl,
Business.
Thank you very much.
We'd love to have you back. Absolutely.